Right now I want to talk about how to write the body. So in the last video I talked about how to write a hook and how to write, and how to write a really great hook. Now we need to flesh out the body. So at this point we have reeled the viewer in. Now it's time to go into the meat and bones of the content. This section will determine whether the viewer actually finds a video valuable and interesting. In introduction, we would have already introduced the payoff of the video, but to keep the viewer engaged, we don't just have one mega payoff. We want to insert mini payoffs into the video. I'm going to talk about what that is. So let's say you're doing an educational video. Each mini payoff could be each step of doing cold email lead generation. So cold email is just one of the ways in order to get clients for business, let's say. And the steps are warming up the domains, writing the cold email, setting up the campaigns. And for simplicity's sake, let's just say these are the three main steps. One of the things that you want to have is called an open loop, or and some people will call it a setup, but you can call it an open loop or you can call it a curiosity gap. Completely explaining how to do each step is like giving your audience the reward, right? Or just telling the viewer straight up what happened is, giving your audience a reward. And they feel good once they have learned each new step. But the job of the script is to present each new step as more important, or each next thing that happens is more important than the previous one, so that the viewer will stay anticipating each next step. And we do this by creating an open loop or doing a setup. The open loop technique is a copywriting trick where you open a story, but you never close it with a satisfactory ending. And that way we create a curiosity gap so that the viewer wants to learn more. So let's say this is the simple outline of the body section, right? And this is the exact same thing. It could start with an open loop, and then it could be the point. Or it can be an open loop, and you play some clips, you explain why this is important, and then you have the next open loop. There's multiple ways you can write this, but let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's this. So how to execute it? When you're scripting the video, you want to write out the points first. Okay, so open loop, you fill in the points. Open loop, you fill in the points. Open loop, fill in the points. Open loop, fill in the points. And then you can script out the open loops afterwards. So over here, we want to script the open loops, which is essentially transitions from one point to another. So just a couple examples is the first step is the one that is by far the most important and yet also the most overlooked. Next, but after coming up with ideas, there is one thing that YouTubers will completely neglect and leave to the end of the video creation process, when in reality, it should actually be one of the first things that you do. Next, this next step I'm about to share with you is perhaps the most disregarded step of them all, and yet is the one that drives the most results. Next, now that we have the script settled, the next step is by far the easiest, yet most people overcomplicate it. You can see here, when I'm reading this out, you're like, oh, now that we have the script settled, what is the next step that is the easiest and yet also the most complicated? Right? Now that we have the raw footage, we can move on to everyone's favorite step. And then the question is, okay, what is everyone's favorite step? So over here you can see that it's a transition, right? We're transitioning from one point to another, or one story beat to another, but we are also inducing curiosity. That's the open loop. And then over here you'll want to start scripting with bullets, right? So if I were to script out payoff 1, right, which is to come up with a great video idea, the main question that I would want to answer is, why is a great idea important? What is proof that a great idea is important? Did anybody credible say that a great idea is the first step? How do I come up with a great idea? So these are just a bunch of questions in the viewer's head when you are talking about a specific point, right? And with a story, it's the same thing, right? When there's a given story, you want to answer every question that the viewer may potentially have about the story, and then you can just script out the bullet points like these. I'm not going to read it out loud, but this is one of the steps in outlining the script. So you can outline the script. You want to do this for every single point first, and then once you kind of have a good idea about how the script will flow, and then you can start fleshing it out. So this is how you go from research to outline, and then once you finish the outline, then you can start fleshing it out. So this is more of the outlining step, and hopefully this helps in writing the body. In future modules, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the storytelling structures and what makes for a really great script in different niches.